All right. Ready?
Well, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We are. I'm very excited that I can be with you again, and I'm gonna see. Let make sure that some of the things what we could do will really go into the live stream on certain spaces. And so, hang on one second, guys, because there seemed to be a problem in the Rumble, and I want to make sure that that goes in there. So I'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And but if not, we'll continue. I could always upload it in Rumble. So this podcast is live streaming in YouTube. It's live streaming in, as I said, Rumble and supposedly, and in LinkedIn and in Twitter. So and other than this platform here in Facebook. So if do you have a problem accessing it and you want to reach out to me or to Pierre, just feel free to email me or connect with me. So today I am um, very excited that we can talk about an alternative solutions, health solutions, because no matter what, we have to take care of our body first, our physical body, which is also part of our emotional body, our spiritual body, our mental body, and the whole many facets of our body need to really be in coherence or source alignment. Um, I'm just going to now and then I will mute Pierre when he's not talking because I can hear a little noise, and sometimes that's the way we can really have a good sound for all of you, especially those who are listening by audio. Sometimes I do that when I'm driving, I'm listening audio. So, as much as possible, I want it to be clear from any unnecessary or distorted noise, okay? But so I thank Pierre so much for having met him because it's again another source of good contact, quality contact, like good brotherhood in the kind of work that I do. So um, Pierre is the developer of scalar solutions and bioenergy field tester, and he has being a member of the Professional Wellness Alliance, a licensed member for the Professional Wellness Alliance, and he can speak to us about that. And he started working with clients as energy tester in 2010. So he was ahead of the game than me. I started in 2013, and and I met some of Pierre Andre's colleagues, and that's how we got connected. And as they said in quantum energy, once connected, you're always connected. And sooner or later, we met, and we just recently met in his home in Dallas, Texas. And that was a very nice experience. And he gave up working as a social worker, just because he feels that there is a need more for his alternative health expertise. And he does one-on-one consultations, whether in person or online. And you could always connect with him at pierrepandre.com. Okay, so there. And there will be many links that I will post or include in the post notes, including many links that you could also get in touch with me or resources through me or from Pierre. So, Pierre, tell us how you got into this practice, because you could have been a social worker and continuing to serve people that way, but you diverted into something more that you think is more special or more important.
Always had a heart wanting to work with people. That's how I got into social work. And the beauty is, it was sort of God. I believe in God's perfect timing for myself because as I was looking to integrate and bring, like, I get nutritional supplemental donations into the school to try to work with children for their mental health. I was experiencing pushback around that. And so I was very dissatisfied ultimately as well, because I'm the type of person where, if when you present something to me and tell me that it's great, I should be able to follow up and find evidence of its efficacy. So a lot of the children and families that I was working with, their children were using these medications, and they were always worse. Using my own observation, I would see the children who used the medications and did everything as they were told were always worse than the children who didn't, who just did counseling. And that's where I was hoping to be able to close that gap. And when I was getting that sort of pushback, I was just very unhappy. And then ultimately too, I've been on this journey studying the natural health stuff, working with people on the side. But fast forward to 2020, with all that happened there, and then to bring it up to speed, when my niece was bullied in terms of taking the medical decision, I'll just call it. She reached out to me and I had to assist her. She basically got injured. And I was planning on sort of keeping quiet, but then I had some other clients who I've worked with for years who I needed to assist as well. And then, I just felt like God spoke to me. There's going to be other people. So you need to make yourself available to things that you're doing so those who are interested can get the help. Because in my opinion, there's not enough of, if people really knew to the extent of what's been done to them, there's not enough graces out there to assist them. There's not enough Pierres. We all should be booked up for the next several years with the amount of people who are suffering because of what ultimately occurred. And so, here I am. And the other piece that I'm big on and that I'm doing is a lot of advocacy work. I am an OC coordinator, volunteer coordinator for Texans for Vaccine Choice. I even have a teaching event I'm doing this coming at the end of the month, and I'm big on, like I said, really the educational piece as well, because there's a big percentage of people, ultimately the decisions they're making, it's because of the lack of informed consent. And so those are the people I want to speak to and help fill those sort of gaps. There's of course people who are perfectly comfortable with life the way it is in that traditional medical model, and that's totally okay with me. I'm not here to take away that choice from you.
Yeah, I see really the importance and recognizing the fact that many times we think we are on the right path
Mhm.
because we've just been bombarded from childhood of the same way of treating ourselves, the same way of being, you know, on the path to wellness. But instead, maybe we could just temporarily get better, but then we continue to have another problem, and we don't even think that maybe this new problem is arose from the old, or not the old, but we wasn't really resolved, but we just did something that it continued again. And um, so I wanted to let the people hear your story on the recent client that you have who had a long list of medications. And I'm going to mute myself again, Pierre. Okay.
Yeah, I literally earlier this week, by happenstance, it was actually the gentleman's wife who decided to reach out, and she booked me. And so when we were in here, and actually, let me take a step back. Part of what I'll do with people at times, I told her, right, don't tell me anything about your husband. Let me do my energetic assessment of him. And so we sat down, and I had my different things that I use to assess the human body. And then I gave her the feedback that he tested as being having blood sugar issues, aka diabetes, um, lots of inflammation. Uh, he also had issues with his kidneys. He had heart issues. He had clotting in his lungs. He tested for having what we call thrombosis. And so I asked him, I said, hey, have you made that medical decision around that certain shot? He was like, yes. And then when we started comparing notes, he was on 8 medications, people, 8. Now, this is a massive issue because traditionally Big Pharma defines polypharmacy as being on 5 or more medications. So he qualifies 1 based on their definition because he's on 8. The wife let me know that their practitioners, their doctors and psychiatrists never mentioned this as being a concern. But what I would contend to people is 2 medications is polypharmacy. And why would I say 2? It's because all of the medications that's ever been approved, they are approved in isolation in their studies. So like when Tylenol is approved, Tylenol is studied by itself, but never do they study, say, a statin drug and a high blood pressure drug together. We already know we have a list of issues both of those create, but they never bother to say, hey, wait a minute, what happens if we have you taking both of these things? And so I had let the wife know that this is of significant concern, and she needs to really talk to the practitioners about this. And keep in mind, like what Grace was saying, what would happen is he started off on 1 medication, new issues arose, then he got a second medication, new issues arose, then he got a third and a fourth, and it was a mess. He was on benzodiazepines, multiple psychotropics. And so what we did after I did my assessment and worked with him via frequency is we laid out a nutritional plan for him to assist his body. Your body is never deficient in Big Pharma's chemical compounds, but we are deficient in things like magnesium, selenium, things like that. And when we start to reintroduce the things that the body needs, all of a sudden issues can go away.
For what you and I are doing, and that's why I like this title that our body really speaks to us. And how about when people go and do the lab works, either in a blood test, urine test, saliva test, and most people don't even know that there are advanced testing now through the saliva and urine, that they kind of just know that, the traditional blood work. And even if they do blood work, there's in many practices, it's still limited unless again you go to an integrative practitioners. And then, however, sometimes they could go into a regular functional medicine practitioner, but there's something missing. Their chronic condition continues to be chronic. So how would you say that the body really talks to us?
Oh, great question. And I have a real life example of something that recently occurred with someone who contacted me last week. We did 1 round. She booked me for an assessment. I work with her remotely. She said she did 10 prior protocols with practitioners, had her blood totally assessed. And I was like, okay, so what did the doctor find? The doctor was ecstatic. All of her biomarkers had significantly changed. Everything that you wanted to go up, like the nutrients, the nutrient profile, and everything you wanted to go down went down, like C-reactive protein, the inflammation in the body, biomarkers of infection, things of that nature. And how it ties with what you mentioned, and this is not a knock against functional medical doctors, but what Grace is doing, what I am doing is really, to me, it's really the front line of what the body says, because in blood work, it's only as good as what you've programmed the blood to analyze. But when we're dealing with energetic issues, for example, many of my clients, this gentleman, I mean, when I assess people, this gentleman, he tested as needing physical support. I check different categories for people and say, what is the primary area of your body that your body needs the most support? Most people don't need physical. It's typically emotional. A blood test can't find that. We know or for the most part, most people know how horrible stress is and how it's destroying people. When you go into these traditional practitioners, they don't check you for stress. When I work with people, I always try to have them walk away with a stress protocol and to match them with the things that the body needs, because when we are stressed, we actually use up our nutrients even faster. always describe it like, think of driving a car. You know, you get decent fuel efficiency at 60 miles per hour, but when we're stressed, we're doing 120. And so it's very important to be able to differentiate these things. And via the world of energy testing frequency, the body literally spits out what it needs. And so that's the difference. So I got to work with this woman who worked with a functional medical doctor. I have another client, the same thing happened, and I'm still working with her and her daughters to this day. She's told me she spent thousands of dollars with a functional medical doctor, did all the blood work. When I worked with her, we did the stress protocol. We worked on clearing emotions and traumas, energy blockages. One round, she saw a difference, and so she continues to work with someone like myself. So it's two very different worlds. The one thing that I would definitely encourage people with functional medical doctors is at least they don't use poisons. So that's a start, because your body isn't deficient in any poisons. But as far as I know, I've yet to meet or hear of a functional medical doctor that does the QRA, that does the quantum reflex analysis, where the body spits out its specific protocol, what's weak and what it needs. The traditional functional medical doctor just looks at the blood work, based on the blood work, and then matches you to supplements that may or may not be high quality. And they don't even create a customized protocol based on what your body is saying. So that's the difference.
I'm glad you mentioned about stress and emotions, because for if people can only like pay attention, slow down when strong emotions arise, then they could really see if they're, like, say, let's with the basic of their heart rate racing, or their blood pressure may be racing, or no, they get sweaty, or things like, or their arms getting numb. There are the body is so beautifully, powerfully created that it tells us the first things that, to call our attention. And yeah, this conversation is has I do respect functional medicine practitioners more than the traditional Western medicine practitioners, just because at least they up their game. And I like that you said, okay, they don't they don't be encouraging poisons in pills and capsules and other procedures that are unnecessary. However, you have to continue to up your game we take care of ourselves, right? Because what happens, the key to now really uh like letting your inner feeling sense that, I'm not going anywhere, I just have the same issue again and again, then maybe it's time to change the course. And no matter, and we all have heard that we're all energy, we all have frequency. So why not, as Pierre emphasized, even from the get-go, start with that already. And it's okay to each its own decision. You seek help from whoever, wherever, however you want it. But then we have to own that decision and be responsible, because either you work with Pierre or with any other energy practitioner, it's still your responsibility. So, like many people, Pierre doesn't sleep very well. So what do you know about not sleeping very well, and the popular approach of using melatonin?
Oh, that's one of my favorite topics. But here's the funny thing: we take a step back. When I work with people, typically, because there's a lot of what I would argue is actual misinformation around melatonin. One of the major issues is people, one, aren't even using a really good quality product. So if you think you're going to get a good quality product out of CVS, that's one issue. The second issue is, from me working with melatonin, by the way, it's one of the key substances, hint, hint, that helps to rebuild the mitochondria. There's a whole medical journal about melatonin, tons of books about melatonin. It is one of the few things that gets into the mitochondria and really helps the body to heal itself. And so you need a quality product. But in all of my protocols of what I do with people, I have them use it during the day because it provides oxidative stress support. It is amazing for the brain. It is amazing for the heart. When you take it during the day, the body actually doesn't get sleepy as long as there's light out. So you don't get the relaxation effect. You're taking it to support your brain, your heart, to help the body purge poisons. I know a lot of people, our understanding is they say glutathione is the master antioxidant. It's not, it's melatonin. It's a precursor for glutathione. Your body has receptors all over for melatonin. And so it is amazing as well for helping suppress what's called the Warburg effect, in which basically, if you're taking a high dose, because what I do with clients, I use a low dose and energy test them and match them. So, for example, a client might test at 7 milligrams a day. Just this client that I recently worked on, but his body said take 5 during the day and only 2 milligrams for sleep, right? And so even overnight, the body will detoxify itself. But when you take a low dose for sleep, while you sleep, your body detoxifies, and that helps with the oxidative stress as well. So unfortunately, a lot of people just don't know how to use the melatonin. And this is why I always tell people the things that I'm doing, I always give honor and praise to God, because I like to describe it like, think of someone who took 60,000 hours to learn how to play a piano, right? Versus someone who was born with music in them. When I started my journey and was introduced to my mentor, a quantum physicist, right away, he was able to see that it was like this was something that I should be doing. I was able to contribute to the scalar technology he created. But, back to the melatonin piece, it's twofold. You'd want to take it twice a day. The bulk of the melatonin you'd want to take during the day, and then a little bit for sleep. Many manufacturers, for example, they have products that's 10 milligrams, 20 milligrams. I've seen one even 60. It's too much on the body. It won't make you sick or send you to a hospital, but that's part of why we end up groggy. So I've learned a low dose at night, and most people test for the bulk of it during the day. And that's how you get the most out of it. And, one other tidbit I'll add, how a lot of people are having hormonal issues? Tons of documentation on melatonin for helping the body with the excess estrogens. That's why we have so many men feminized. And I personally, my protocol, I've learned I use melatonin and zinc. You use a really good zinc, you can create a great amount of synergy and amplify the benefits there. But really, get yourself educated about melatonin, people. I can't say enough good things about it. I tend to find many applications with it. And the last thing I'll say too is I've recently discovered from a book that I read, because of how neuroprotective it is, if you have a child who's boxing, football, any of these sports where people are taking head hits, they should be using melatonin. All these NFL players, it literally helps preserve the brain. The brain loves melatonin, and it literally acts as a battery to help recharge the ATP within the cell. So really get through the misinformation, get a really good product, use it twice a day, try to work with somebody who does QRA. Anybody who could energy test will match you to the proper protocol, and you will notice tremendous benefits.
And we have to remind our audience too that melatonin may be just kind of like well known for sleep. But the point is, it's because it's for sleep. Sleep is the key. Then we go back again to the relaxation. And if we can have in that mode of that relaxation where there's space for our body, our atoms, our molecules to do its work, and then we that our it's like tapping our own healing potential. So you, the the client, the consumer, the patient will have that ability if you just have that quality sleep. And yes, melatonin is considered to be an very inexpensive or very affordable if you have to use it, if you have to get it from the supplement. But one thing we have to also remember is the sun exposing our face, exposing our head, it creates that connection to our pineal gland and to our brain and then to our whole body. And it's even recommended that if we have exposure to the sun, especially in the morning and in the sunrise and the sunset, all orifices of our body exposed to that in private, okay? Because it's all in private. Don't go out naked, if you're in public. They said that it invites our body to it. It's sort of tell our body, Grace, Pierre, go and produce your melatonin. So this is how we have to connect our body to the other creations that is around us. And that's where energy practitioners always think of, is we're not separate, we're not isolate from all the other things going on. And I know most of our audience will be concerned about the electromagnetic frequencies. So tell me how they can protect that, because I'm also big in how people can protect that, especially protecting our DNAs.
Uh, Two options, and then also too, I'll go back. I had a couple things to mention with sleep for people, but yes, for the electromagnetics, and this is where, for example, people like myself and Grace, you know, will get a lot of pushback. You got two options because of what the electromagnetics are doing. They create a level of extra oxidative stress. It helps to open up your cells and let more poisons in. So the two options are either you raise your level of antioxidants daily to offset, because you have to account for that. By the way, melatonin helps with that. It helps to remove radiation out of the body. It helps to lower the oxidative stress. So that's another reason why you would want to have that at play, and it's very economical. Or you have to use certain technologies that are wearables that are very effective at helping protect your biology. It doesn't block the electromagnetics because the body is energetic in its nature. You can bring anything you bring to the body or you wear can strengthen or weaken the human energy field. And so there are things that we can wear. There's technologies that's been developed. There's even stuff that I've developed that I have people wear. I'm actually wearing it right now. And that's how we protect ourselves on an ongoing basis. And then we don't have to take in extra nutrition to offset the radiation. I just had a client, the son of a woman. First, I did her assessment. Her support was primarily emotional. Yes, radiation was an issue, but her son's top issue was actually radiation, more so than even having been injected. He wasn't injected with the C19 shot, but his radiation level was high, and that creates lots of oxidative stress. And so here we can go back to sleep. Some people, one of the reasons why you're not sleeping properly is you might need to move your bed. If your bed, like if you have a smart meter attached to your home and your bed is near that, the closer you are to that electromagnetic wave, the more disruptive it can be to your biology. So it's really important at times, at a minimum, unplug your Wi-Fi at night. Again, having that melatonin will help with that. Blue light blockers, glasses. That's another reason why, as we get older, we produce less melatonin. Blue light blockers is an option, but cortisol is a major issue with sleep, right? Vitamin C, real whole food vitamin C is amazing for your brain and your adrenals. You have a lot of vitamin C within your adrenals. So another simple sleep hack is using some real like acerola cherry, amla to go along with like your melatonin potentially when you go to bed at night, because you have to get that cortisol under control. One client, for example, I had them using even adrenal glandulars from grass-fed cows. You match the tissue for tissue when there's an area there. And that made a massive difference for her, because a lot of people, and this is the beauty, Grace, and I'm sure you've seen this, blood work, right, will say a lot of people who have thyroid issues. You know what I've discovered? We can simply analyze the body and ask the body. Many people who think they have thyroid issues, when you assess their body, the body says it's adrenal. The adrenals will steal from the thyroid. the body literally knows, and to keep you alive, the body can reroute and start pulling energy from other places. So these people will be on thyroid meds, doing all of these things, not getting better. We start working and supporting the adrenals stop taking stress off the thyroid, and all of a sudden now the issue can resolve itself.
And it's interesting that the adrenals are key glands when it comes to relaxation and when it comes to fight or flight. So we're back to that baseline again. That's why a lot of, quiet time, meditation time, or anything that kind of slow us down becomes helpful. Okay. Someone once is requesting if you could please talk about your lasers, your magnets, the benefits, experiences, and describe some of the patients who had been working with you using the lasers.
Uh, well, actually, I mean, I can talk a little bit about it, but right now, with exception of practitioners, is not necessarily being made available to the public. But ultimately, the backstory, and people can go ahead and take a look at this. Historically, the body is very electrical. It's also very magnetic. If you do a quick Google search, you'll see that there's been books, there's medical journals and things, of citations about how they've used magnets to assist the body for pain, for inflammation, for many different issues. Several months back, I literally just woke up one morning and I had a voice in my head say, "Hey, you need to go back and play around with the magnets that you have because you should be able to program them." Literally, I was not looking to do this. So I listened to the voice, went and started imprinting various scalar frequencies into magnets. And so we're using them for many different things. We use them, for example, to help the body. People can wear them, and it actually helps to boost your ATP production and help the body be strengthened, because at the bottom of your feet, you have that's tied to all of the various vital organs. And so wearing them, I've had people give great feedback. We use them for anxiety, different things where you can place them on different points on the body, and that helps for the nervous system, for anxiety. We're using them to help the body clear toxins because of the programming that's within them. Similar with the lasers, we use it. You can remediate most logos and things people wear will test as weakening the body. We can remediate that. You can use the lasers to imprint a program into your electrical panel, where then for your whole home, that's one of the ways we can reduce electrical stress or throughout your house. So that's just a whole a whole nother realm. Primarily, though, I have several premier practitioners who are now carrying it, and that's sort of the way we are. Somebody could find it to be made available, but I'm actually not in the process where I've totally released it to the general public, because we are going to do some third party testing and a lot of different things around it. But right now, for people who know how to do this work, I do make it available, and they are able to hit the ground running and use it with clients. We even, by the way, use it to remediate food and drink. We can make your supplements more beneficial for you. There's many applications.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm loving our conversation. I'm just hoping that when sometimes when you're talking, there's like the Wi-Fi is not very cooperative. But anyway, we'll keep on talking, and when the time comes, we'll do another one for the future. So forgive us for those who are getting irritated. We don't mean to make it difficult for you to hear us. Um, there was also a situation when someone sent me a picture of a lady whose face just had so much redness that it's obvious that the whole skin. And if this skin has so much redness and inflammation, I can imagine the rest of the body, what's going on with that also. And so the question for me, and I want to share it with you, and from what this person understand, is that it's from heavy metals. So then the question is, can you really it's from mercury particularly. So my friend asked me, can you really detox mercury? So of course I said, yes, there's many protocols that are available to do heavy metal detox and get rid of mercury. And the first one I usually say, check what's in the mouth. And because many of us have been going to dentists thinking that we've been taking care of ourselves, doing all the root canal, implants, and many other things, and there's just so many metals that they've been putting in. So I always like to think that when you're looking at metals in your body, don't look too far first and look at your mouth. So I wanted to ask you, what is the importance of the daily detox in relation to like heavy metal overload or any other problems related to metals?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I take it a step further because we're dealing with tons and tons of poisons just in the air, the water. For example, I have a whole house water filtration system. I do have my quantum magnets on them. I do a lot of frequency stuff with water in general, but I've always told people like that what I post online on social media is don't wait for spring or a special time of year to detox. We should be using binders, in my opinion, at least weekly, every few days, because binders help to bind up and remove those poisons. Things like a really good zeolite, activated charcoal, chlorella. By the way, what I discovered, you know how many companies put spirulina and chlorella together? We're better off taking them separate. Spirulina is great nutritional support. It does have some detox aspects, but the more powerful detox agent is chlorella. So like taking a chlorella and activated charcoal is superior doing that every few days. But in general, like the whole food vitamin C, the melatonin, things like resveratrol, astaxanthin, there's key antioxidants that we need to be bringing in the body in real time to help the body purge these things. So people with metal fillings, I always, the goal is eventually to get them out. But just like with the electromagnetics, if you have metal fillings in your mouth, you are someone who needs extra nutritional support daily to offset the heavy metals. Because the body is great at keeping you alive and it'll continue to push the poisons in different areas, but you have to give it the raw materials to help you have a high state of health. And even too, there's a lot of infections and things that people get in the mouth. So there are ways too to work with the body in that manner. And I would also add, interestingly enough, I'm sure many people are familiar like with Dr. Bradley Nelson's emotion code. What I discovered, in my opinion, is incomplete because within your bones and even your teeth, you will hold on to emotional traumas, even along the cell wall. And that's huge. So when we're talking about stress, like what Grace mentioned earlier, one of the reasons some people who think they're doing a holistic lifestyle don't get those changes is because the emotional piece hasn't been addressed yet. That's very, very important that we check the body. If the body is under enough emotional stress and they're in a sympathetic state or a dorsal state, and I forgot what the other state is, there's like three lower states the nervous system can be in. And if you're very stressed in that manner, nothing works as efficiently as it should. So really important. That's how you tackle heavy metals, up your nutritional support, then eventually get that stuff out of your mouth.
And how about with the jab that's been pushed for, maybe for the ones that most people know is just in the last 3 4 years? But for me as a mother, I'm aware of that for the last many decades. And that's because I also had a son to protect. So, will that also be, how do you handle that? And can you share also what you've been doing with the within the community of those who wants to really be protected more have that informed consent for whatever they do or for their body?
So one, that's part of why I'm actually wearing the shirt. It says Texans for Vaccine Choice. Going back to what happened with my niece and seeing what happened with other clients, and realizing too how much of a gap there was because I've been studying this stuff for so long. With all three of my children, they've never even had an antibiotic. They all were born at home, and of course, I refuse to use any of those products, allow consent for any of those products to be used on my children. And the irony is, many people will point out the difference of how my children present, how alive they are, how few to no health issues they have compared to other people who have followed the general guidance. So, with the informed consent, one of the things I always share with people, I think you were showing those two books. I would highly encourage people look into Dr. Jennifer Daniels' book. It's called The Lethal Dose. This book right here, Dr. Jennifer Daniels, and this book sort of touches on how the standard of care in itself, the nature of it is very lethal, but insurance covers the doctors, so there's no one to blame. You can look this up as well. Top three killer is iatrogenic medical procedures, which means following doctor's orders from all of the surgery they do, the medication, taking them as prescribed. That's a top three killer in the U.S. I would argue since the introduction of that new toxin, that is probably number one. And so it's really about trying to get that information out to people. People aren't aware how all of these manufacturers have been sued tremendously for all sorts of criminal behavior, but the government consents with them to allow them to continue to be in business and manufacture things that go in our body. And not only that, that they force us to take these things. And like basic logic would say, I'm not going to trust someone with such an extensive track record of bad behavior, of poisons, of bribery, but because the elected officials force it on us, plus they give these people immunity, that's something of question to be asked. And that's why I'm passionate about the education piece. Now, in private practice and private work with people, this is where things like the melatonin, PQQ, the zeolite, I've found a whole menu of things now that I save, especially with what I had to do with my niece, and now I've done it over and over again with several people. Systemic enzymes, high quality. There's a big difference. If you run out and you don't buy something of the highest quality, they're not going to work. But that's a big foundational piece to help eat away those clots and things of that nature in the body. And I find these same substances work really effective even with children. They'll assist children, and now this is where what Grace is doing and what I'm doing helps to separate us from the pack. People who are dealing with mast cell, which means they can't take any supplements, the frequency work their bodies can receive. And that's a way we would be able to help those people. So functional medical docs, or even the best herbals, those people's mitochondria have been hurt so bad that they will reject the melatonin, they will reject the vitamin C. But via frequency, we have ways to give the body what it needs. The magnets, for example, people can wear it to help boost up the health and get the body back to a specific place. And so ultimately, this work is like twofold. Like I said, getting the word out so that once people are aware, they can make better decisions. But then also, too, building community and letting people know that we haven't been abandoned, at least not by God. I would say the government has abandoned us, but not by God, that all of these things made in nature, if we use them appropriately, we absolutely can help ourselves to recover a significant amount of what was lost with our health.
So, how about when people say, I'm just going to eat my way to wellness? Okay, why do I have to be taking good supplements? You mentioned earlier, find the good supplements because not all supplements are the same. The same thing as not all practitioners are the same. Yeah, but I'm just gonna not be bothered with any and eat my way because now I know that I can eat this, I can eat that. Okay. So how do you respond to that when it, especially when it comes to the nature of our soil?
Oh yeah, I typically always refer people to Senate Document 263, I think, or 264, where they acknowledged many years ago the soil is depleted. Now, especially if we live in the USA, you have another unique issue where, with depleted soil, there are a lot of toxins and chemicals that are banned in Europe that is not banned here in America. So your toxic load is naturally going to be greater, right? So these are things that companies are allowed to, like DuPont, that they're allowed to put into the atmosphere, and it's creating a level of stress on you. So we have to account for those. If you got heavy metals in your mouth, we have to account for that as a daily poison. The electromagnetic frequencies, that's a daily poison. But here you are saying, I'm just going to eat a clean diet. Again, if it's not in the soil, if it's not in the plants, it's not in you. So supplementation is very, very important, and using the high quality things will help you to continue to have a great level of health. That's why chronic disease is at an all-time high, and most chronic disease people experience is lifestyle choices. Notice during the 2020 emergency, never did they mention or subsidize gym memberships. They closed those down. They're still not subsidizing organic food. And keep in mind, the organic apple of today that you grow is not the same when they analyze the nutrient content versus 60, 70 years ago, what our grandparents were consuming. So there's all of these things to really consider. And this is what I mean. People are being a little naive. If even if you grow all of your food indoors within your own home or whatever have you on your backyard, what about the chemtrails? So you see, there's nothing wrong. It's really about, and this is where the quantum reflex analysis and the energy testing comes in. You don't need to even get yourself all overloaded with supplements. You need a handful of really, really good things. One tidbit that I discovered, I use a really good bee pollen that I analyzed that tested stronger than anything I could find here in the USA. It's amazing for children with allergies, immune issues, and things like that. A really good bee pollen, and like if you combine a really good bee pollen and spirulina, that literally could be the foundational multivitamin for someone or a child. Because most companies are making a lot of garbage product with a lot of filler, but the need to supplement, I mean, I can't say enough about it. Like through supplementation, I was able to get my mom off of all of her medications and able to have her have a significant amount of energy and things back, versus if we just try diet, I don't see how that would happen. The body will speak to what it needs, and we need to honor that.
Uh, we love bee pollen ourselves. I just had a teaspoon of it
I
to
did too.
with the raw milk, organic raw milk, but raw. And then I placed some pomegranate seeds, and then blueberries, and then the raw milk. So it's cool. I like it. Yeah, and for that's really, even when we test it, right? That's excellent for men and women hormones, and the bee pollen is excellent for skin, hair, and nails, and for your urinary tract situations. So it's basically one of the best supplements, which is really a food, which is really nutrients. And when we're talking about the lack of nutrients in the soil, think same thing with what's happening with the water. Okay, so now that's for another conversation with that water, the source of water we have, what we can do for the water. And I've had previous guests before, and I'm lucky that I'm in contact with, a reliable water expert that I trust. So when I have a question, then I would go to him, and it's so that's good. And but that's the beautiful thing with this relationship and interconnectivity. Once one is in the path for the, in terms of like energy medicine, you get connected with people and community. So that's one thing I can add to this conversation. um what my question is, what happens when what happens to uh, our I think I want to bring it back to the central nervous system, you know, especially the GV20. 'Cause- And I'm also asking that question just because in the spiritual evolution, in my understanding, is we're always have to be in alignment. And my imagination is always that straight line going vertical to the source. And of course, my connectivity with you becomes horizontal. So, talk to me about or talk to our audience what good adaptogens and why we need that adaptogens, which was never even popular in the language of the doctors before, even functional medicine doctors. But the herbalists know already the word adaptogens.
Yeah, I was just making a note. That's a great question because this is where the energy testing comes in again. All adaptogens universally are good. They're great. The issue is if you're not taking the proper adaptogen for yourself, you're not going to get that stress support. And that's why they're called adaptogens. They basically help to almost create a bumper and buffers for the body. It helps to control cortisol safely for the body. So as your body is stressed, instead of things getting weakened, it helps to modulate. It's almost like to help you brace yourself for impact. Your car is going to hit, but you got nice bumpers around the car. We are protecting it from any significant damage. I find most men universally test great for American ginseng, holy basil, which also even has radiation components to protect you from radiation. Rhodiola is one of the top ones. Uh, Panax ginseng, typically I find for women, women tend to be better with Shishendra. The ashwagandha, which is a famous one many people know about, it's hit or miss. Interestingly enough, some women don't test for ashwagandha. And this is, again, why the energy testing is so key because universally, ashwagandha is good. All of the adaptogens are good, but they're not all good necessarily for you. So when I build stress protocols for people, I tend to look to match them and ask if we're going to only use one adaptogen daily, what would it be to assist such and such with their daily stress? And here's another advanced thing that happens after you've been on a certain adaptogen for a certain amount of time, the body will switch and say, okay, this can't help me that much. I had someone that I'd had them do a protocol on rhodiola. They did it for about a month and a half, and now they're testing for American ginseng, And so I love the isolates rather than buying the complexes. Some complexes are good that companies combine various adaptogens, some are bad. The issue why some are bad is ingredients can become antagonistic. Like let's say if ashwagandha doesn't go together with holy basil, both are really good, but there's some cancellation happening. So you taking both at once, even if it's both are good for you, you won't get those sort of results. There's that issue. And then with complexes where all the adaptogens go together, I still check people because there are times where there'll be that one adaptogen in that complex a person's body doesn't like. And so then, the mushrooms are great adaptogens, but really, if you want to get the most out of them, I would say work with a QRA practitioner to match you. And that sort of stuff is ancient wisdom that's been around for many years. I would use that to segue, Grace. Think about the psychotropics. People who get on psychotropics is because they're highly stressed, right? Even though we have things like holy basil, passion flower, I'll give you for example, I found amazing results, and it's in the medical literature for things like ADHD, people with the racy brain. Amino acids, I use glycine. Glycine, by the way, with melatonin together, amazing for helping the body remove excess hormones. Glycine, great for sleep. Glycine, great for collagen production. Dirt cheap, tastes like candy. I mean, like sugar, you could give it to children. It's found in food, but in higher amounts, we can use it as a therapeutic to help calm the nervous system. Remember, if we have runaway cortisol and the nervous system out of control, you can be eating the cleanest and doing all of these things, and you won't get the gains that you hope. But yeah, adaptogens are a huge piece to help us bust up stress and offset it. And that's the safe way to go rather than psychotropics. And the last thing I'll mention is L-theanine. I'm starting to find lots of efficacy in use with people, and it's one of the amino acids that's found in green tea and black tea. But using that in high doses for people, I even use it for myself. I'm shocked how calm it helps me feel, no matter how stressed I am. Because I have young children and things going on, and yeah, I can't say enough good things about these sort of substances. So we do have answers, people, how to safely reverse these issues and or at least manage them without poisoning ourselves. And the beauty is most of this stuff is cheap. That's the irony compared to medications, and safe.
Amazing, fantastic resources. Because, and we're reading our minds, because I really wanted to say, see, there's so many abundant resources that God gave to us. All we have to do is you just welcome it, welcome, and then we avoid more troubles for ourselves. And in addition, what I wanted to add to that, and all this wonderful conversation we're having, is that the power of just breathing properly, just the power of breath. Because for me, that's like the direct source connection, and that we need to not limit ourselves for just the two-way breathing, because I've been learning six-pointed breathing, 12-pointed breathing. And we can just kind of remember that if we didn't learn this before, it's because there's just so many things that we're not in, like we're not promoted or we're not taught to us, because their illness is always a good business. Okay. So, but wellness is where we continue to protect our inside of our body, our DNAs. And even then, is not just for protect, but when we take care of our body the way we're been talking, the way Pierre and I take care of ourselves, as if we're maximizing what the Western, the mainstream, let's say, scientists think that we have more of our junk DNA, but technically we have more of that potential DNA. But all we have to do again is to have that little help, from relaxation to having some technology, made and tested by someone also from with a good heart and good spirit and good vibe. Okay, vibe that will not bring you down, because everything we're just touching is already in, let's say, in the air. It's in the air. And just remember, what the energy medicine doesn't necessarily mean that you can't see it. You can definitely feel it, and you can materialize it in terms of like being tangible and palpable. So if your health is radiant, if you're glowing, if you have good energy, that's basically measurable. So you cannot say that, okay, we're just talking about like woo woo thing. And what we've been saying and Pierre has been doing, it based from ancient practices that we're just kind of bringing back in full swing so people could know that. You know what, you remind me, Pierre, and what I do as well is, remember, there's always a talk about directed energy weapon. So basically, we're doing a good directed energy, not a weapon. Let's see what we need a better word for that. Oh, the directed energy DNA enhancement. That's better, I think. Yeah, we have to be careful as well. And that's in a, I wanted to say also that when it comes to our DNA, those choice of words matter, because DNA, when even mainstream science, if you look at it, there are certain the sequencing of the DNA goes back to what we call fire letters, because that's how our body responds, is to certain words, certain communication, and each word, each letter has certain frequencies. um, I will invite you to share any most last thoughts. If I have missed anything that you would want to share, feel free, and where people can get in touch with you. Okay. And however, whatever.
Yeah. So one last thing I wanted to share is this book. When I do my event later this weekend, this will be given away for people to get themselves educated, and people can thank Texans for Vaccine Choices, donating that. And there's another book we will be giving away. But one resource for people is the story of Dr. Royal Raymond Rife. He was successful, had a 90+% cure rate, assisting the body, and I say cure, assisting the body in healing itself. And they took away, to me, he's one of the foundational people from many years ago to prove this frequency stuff about how the human body responds to frequency and how we can safely assist the body while attacking things that hurt the body, or with this thing that we can't see with our naked eye. So I would encourage people to check that out. And if people want to get in contact with me, my website, pierreprandre.com, that will consistently be up. You can find me on Instagram. It's not underscore my rest. But, you know, based on how much I talk about this injection topic and other topics, I wouldn't be surprised if at any point in time they decide to pull it down. So I would say my website would be the best way to get in contact with me. We will be creating an email list as well about the technologies. And also, too, there's going to be other things that I'm going to be filming for people, for those who are on my email list. And so, yeah, thank you for having me on, Grace.
You're most welcome. And I wanted also to tell people that not all frequencies are the same. So some frequencies can hurt us. So always check the background of the person doing technologies. That's very important. And you will have your wisdom to sense it. Start really listening to the intuitive part of yourself that the source has provided us. And and that's what I do whenever I invite guests to my podcast. I feel sense it and make sure that the frequency between me and the guests and my other people I connect with will be in resonance to what I also believe. That means it will help me to grow more, to grow more in my evolution and my experience for higher level of consciousness, because that's really what matters. Our living here is just one part of our reality, but there are many other parts as well. So, and I want to tell you that there are links in the on the post notes that you could check, and this is part of the sponsorship that I do, meaning no companies is sponsoring me. I am my own sponsor. But your help in ordering any of those things that you love, I have connections with great chocolates. Okay. Great water resource, great water filter resource. So just check that out. And that would be a great help for me to continue what I'm doing, because I love putting a platform for alternative health practitioners and also having great conversation geopolitical wise globally and locally. So thank you everyone, and be well, share. Don't hesitate to reach out to me or to Pierre. We're very accessible. You just put our name on the website. We're practically open ourselves to anything that might happen. However, that protection is always there, because we know we are protected and we will continue to thrive and grow in this heavy book burning environment. And take care and be well. This is Quantum Nurse Grace Asagra, your nurse at your service. Take care. Bye bye.